I'm Corbett Wall with DB Auction, here with your feeder flash for Thursday, May the 3rd, with this cash feeder surge stunted, middle of the week here, and I was sure wrong. I thought, like I said on our last visit, that the board would be up strong on Wednesday and your feeder cattle would get higher once again, but it did not happen. As naturally, the board affects your feeder cattle much more than it does your fat cattle on the surface, and your stubborn June live cattle just refuse to give up that pressure, just wanting to tank all the time, and it doesn't matter how much disparage we get between your cash market and that spot board. It just refuses to show any strength, and it's weighing on your feeder cattle, even though your feeder cattle are going to go way past that. But it's scaring some of these guys, wondering what's out there. You know, what are they not seeing? But a lot of us don't see that big wall of cattle coming that everybody's been talking about, and they're thinking, well, maybe I'm not seeing it right. But another thing that we're starting to see, which is fundamentally, imagine that, but you know, through most of March we just didn't have any cattle moving at all, and we, even though we have a lot of cattle on feed as a whole, we started getting quite a bit of vacancy in some of these feedlots. So whenever April got to rolling and we started seeing some bigger numbers of cattle moving, guys were pretty hungry for them. Well, we filled up a lot of those spots, and there still is a lot of cattle on feed. We know that. We just don't know how many of them are due to come all at once here as we get into June and you know, the next 6 weeks after that. But that's one of the things that's hurting too, is we're starting to run out of pen space again, and guys pretty much got all their needs covered as far as keeping their feedlots full. But you know, we are looking down the road, and we know that we're going to lose some market position on the fat cattle at a certain point. We don't know how much we're going to lose, but the heck of it is, your out front fat cattle futures were actually higher. And why that hurts your feeder cattle here in the middle of the week, but it sure did. You look at the board on Wednesday, June live cattle was down 97 cents there. Now it's under $1.05, and your last top on your fat cattle trade was 126, and here we are at a 104.85 spot live cattle futures quote. August was down just 10 cents at 103.97. Your August feeder cattle up 97 cents at 144.45, and May up 72 at 138.62. Your fat cattle, we have seen a dribble of trade all through the week here, even though it's just the middle of the week. But through Tuesday, they had sold 9,600 head, and all those trades just kind of dribbling in just short of the market. But most all of them for latter part of May delivery. I think the latest we saw here, even on Wednesday morning, was some 117.50, and that's going to be for late May delivery. And you can't blame those guys, because the huge basis they're going to put in their pocket, and as soon as they made the arrangement, that 117.50, then they can get out of that hedge and put that whole thing in their pocket, and it turns out to be a pretty good closeout for them. But we've still got cattle to sell on the spot market. Fed Cattle Exchange did get some cattle sold, some Kansas cattle, didn't get any of the Nebraska cattle sold, but did sell a few pens of Kansas cattle from 122.25 to 122.5, and that's probably where we're going to see our market in the Southern Plains is right in that 122, maybe 123 range, which would still be steady to stronger. And now we may have a hard time beating that 126. You know, it may be 124. We're just not sure where we're at. But you've got to give these feedlot guys credit. They are really digging their heels in the face of bigger supplies and in the face of a huge basis, and they've got ice water going through their veins, and I've been critical of them before, but I'm sure not critical of them this time, because they've held out longer than most of us have really thought that they would. But they're also looking at box beef cutout values, which are continuing higher, and these seems like whenever these packers get it going their way. They just get it going their way from every which direction. Your box beef cutouts have been soaring here of late, and they're on the verge of getting fat cattle a whole lot cheaper. They don't have to worry about the board. They know the board's going to help them get what they want done, but they don't need to play it, because if they were going to play it, they would have put a long hedge on, but of course that would have supported the market, and they're sure not going to do that. Your slaughter has been pretty decent, even though we've talked about some labor disputes, but through Wednesday there are 353,000. That's just 2,000 off of last week and 16,000 more than the same week a year ago. Look at your feeder markets. Your real-time index on Beef Market Central, based on the 800-pound steer, held up pretty decent through, and that's a real-time thing. You can watch it come together. Held up pretty good through about noon, and then just really started caving off when we started getting some of our big sales, especially in the Southern Plains, selling a lot of big droves of cattle. But at the end of the day on Wednesday at 136.65, that was down $2.86 compared to the end of the previous day. So that's a big hunk out of that index figure there. And if you look, OKC West had a big run, 13,900 head, and you think that's a lot of cattle. You look a year ago, they had 15,500 head. But feeder steers $1 to $5 lower after they've had some really monster gains the last several weeks. Feeder heifers $2 to $3 lower, and there was a lot of heifers, a lot of strings of yearling heifers there. And the market report did note that there were several plainer cattle. Now, I noticed that there was a lot more cattle in the second classification grade, the 1s and 2s, than there was in the 1s. Now, I don't know if that's because they had more plainer cattle or because the market was lower and they needed a place to put them. But you look at it, the price was sure off a little bit, but it's funny that there's always more 1s and 2s when the market's down. But calves sold $1 to $3 higher in a like comparable test on Tuesday. Dodge City, Kansas, 4,500 head on Wednesday. Most of the feeders there steady to $3 lower. They had a few spots that differed from that, but that's the general way. St. Joe Stockyards, 2,400 head there. That market was mostly lower, except on some lighter calves, and TK Wright said that Bose and Penny commission firms sure sold some calves high enough for him, and he was tickled with what his light 3 and 4 weight steer calves brought. But look at some individual quotes. Huss Platte Valley Market in Kearney, Nebraska sold 51 head of 586-pound steer calves at $189.50. There's sure not anything wrong with that. And I tell you what, out east, guys, you know, we're getting a time of year where everybody in the 5 areas is sending orders out east because they know they can get green yearlings out there. And look at Bluegrass Stockyards East and Mount Sterling, Kentucky, sold 60 head of 867-pound steers at $138.85. And then in Creston, Iowa, America there, Tom Fry and family right there sold 57 head of 800-pound steers on the button at $144. And that's your feeder flash for Thursday.